Hey everybody, I'm really excited to bring you another interview. Today I get to sit down with Charles, who's the director of a fantastic documentary called Gamemaster.
If the world doesn't play games, then we don't need any game designers anymore, and the world would be certainly a much sadder place.
It's a lot of fun.
It came out this year, 2020, and is available on multiple streaming platforms. So let's go ahead and jump into things. Charles and I are already starting to talk about why it is that he wanted to make this fantastic film.
Do you have any games that you've picked up recently?
You know, so right now I am not in Los Angeles, which is where I regularly live. Right now I'm actually at my girlfriend's parents' house in Pittsburgh, and I've been hanging out with her and her.
It's a great time to play some board games. Does it pass?
Yeah.
So we call it. I call it. And my mother-in-law is a very, very wonderful lady. But a lot of our board game reviews on the channel, I will talk about whether or not it passes the mother-in-law test. Is it a game that my mother-in-law can figure out how to play?
So the game that I've gotten her family into a lot is Dominion. And her mom has actually played, seems to enjoy it. And since I've been here, I've picked up 2 more Dominion expansions.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. So it's fun, and I, in fact, literally before I got on this interview, I was trying to find a good price on any other Dominion expansions.
Oh, that's hilarious! Oh, that's fantastic. Have you tried any of the tabletop simulators? You know, in these unprecedented times.
You know, I don't know that I've done Board Game Arena.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
That's a good one. I've done a lot of iPhone apps. Like I just got the iPhone app for Sagrada, which is great, you know. And,
oh, really? We recently picked up Sagrada, and I love it. I did not expect, and I didn't expect to. I will admit, I was like, it's a beautiful game, but whatever. I really enjoy that game.
It's a good game. So Daryl Andrews, the creator of Sagrada, I know him now a little bit online, and the reason that I know him is because, you know, I forget who it was. I think it might have been Charlie. Charlie Bink knows Daryl Andrews. Charlie Bink from the movie. And, you know, Charlie Bink's like, hey, I'm in this movie about board game. And Daryl Andrews was like, I'm not going to watch this. They didn't ask me to be in the movie.
Now, I mean, what would be great is if you actually could come back and be like, oh, we did. Here's the email.
we did not. Unfortunately, we did not ask Daryl to be in the movie. And he was joking. He's a really nice guy. But, you know, he and I have chatted a little bit online since then. And, you know, sadly, I'm sad that we didn't find a place for him. I think Sagrada was brand new. I don't think it was on our radar till a year after we went to Gen-Con. Yeah.
To have that sort of typical, how did this all get started question. Like, I am curious, like, where the impulse for Gamemaster came from.
So the impulse for Gamemaster, you know, Jimmy, one of the producers, and myself, you know, we played a lot of board games. We got really, really excited and further into the hobby. So we started going to conventions, and it was always kind of like looking for what the next step in the love of playing board games was. And at the conventions, we saw somebody who made their own game, self-published it, you know, did all the artwork, or got a friend to do the artwork, you know, selling it themselves. 100% of the copies were coming from them, and there was something really exciting about that idea.
Do you remember what the game was?
I think the game was something called Parenthood. And I've not seen it since. The only copy I've ever really seen is the one we bought from him. We've never played the game. I don't know if it's any good. You know? But, you know, it did play a part in jump-starting this whole process for us. And, you know, there was something romantic about the idea of, hey, I made this myself. I'm selling it myself. You know, this is all coming from me. And we were kind of took a step back and said, what can we do with this? What can we do with this idea? And can this be an entry into this whole world and industry that we've suddenly taken a huge liking to.
Which was a great documentary. Like I'm a passing fan of documentaries. I like to watch them when they come out, especially if it's about food or serial killers. That's my.
No, those seem to. In trying to sell this, I found out those were the most two popular subjects. Food and
Sure.
serial killers.
But as soon as we put it on, there was a moment where I was like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to watch this in two settings. And I do that with a lot of stuff. And I watched it. I couldn't stop watching it. And then a couple days later went back to watch it a second time, just because something that I thought you captured really nicely was a lack of pretense in a world that's all about sell. I think you see that really well with Jason's game, which is not without problems, I think is fair to say. But you see it as well when you're talking, to people like Klaus Tuber as well. There's no sense of hubris or pretense with them. So, I mean, that was just really cool for me as an audience to sit and watch how you captured that and how you guided that. That was really neat.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a funny story with Klaus. He's made Catan one of the biggest games in the industry. I mean, I think someday it's probably going to be as big as Monopoly. Not tomorrow, not next year or anything, but at some point when we get one or two more generations out from
Sure.
this game existing, I think it will be. And going into it, one of the producers who was there, Wally Strauss, the director of photography, they were kind of like not sure what Klaus was going to be like, because he has the right to kind of be like, hey, I'm a big deal, because he is kind of a big deal. He's kind of a big deal. And we got to his house, his son Benjamin let us in, and in the office, and we had to wait for like about 2 or 3 minutes, and then he came out, and the person that came out was this grandfatherly figure who was the sweetest man ever. And I knew kind of what to expect, because I'd watched a couple interviews with him, and they were very surprised by just how not a big deal it felt like, as far as just like talking to him and just being in his presence. He was just a very regular guy.
How did you decide who you wanted to reach out to? Was there a specific criteria of who you wanted? Was it based on their games? How did that come about?
As far as the people who are a little more established, it was a little bit about the games. We knew we wanted some of the bigger designers, some of the people who had games who would known a little bit, who that we loved, first of all, that we felt like were just like staples in gaming, as far as people who just like, you go to the person who's like, oh, of course I've played Dominion 1,000 times. Of course I've played Catan 1,000 times. It's not like Pandemic is another one. So all those guys are in there. Eric Lang, who we thought was a really big presence and like top tier game designer, he was high on the list. If you won a Spiel des Jahres, you were probably on the short list, and and a lot of it was who were we going to be in the same place at the same time, and what schedules coordinated. We saw a lot of people at Essen Spiel in Germany.
Right. So were you at Essen Spiel for fun, or did you go there knowing that you were going to interviews?
We went there knowing we were going to go to interviews. We went to Gen Con in August, and then I feel like in September, October, we went to Essen Spiel. I forget exactly what month it was, but a couple months later. And so there was Eric Lang was one of them, where we set up like, we met him at Gen Con. I didn't know he was going to be there. I ran into him.
Right.
I went looking for him, and I found him, and I was like, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. Will you be in this documentary, please? And he turned to somebody else who works at Come On and said, you handle it, figure out if these guys are for real or not, And so there was a little bit of vetting, but then, later we were going to be in Essen at the same time. And that's where the interview happened. Same thing with Rainer Knizia. Rainer Knizia was at Essen Spiel. That's where we interviewed him.
So we've been talking about Jason, and I kind of want to get your input on a lot of the different folks, but
Yeah.
I think it would be dishonest to not say that, Jason met some backlash and some pushback from social media and other places with the first iteration of his game. I'm kind of curious from your outside perspective, hearing him talk about where the impulse from the game came from, as well as an outside perspective of seeing what did he learn and the changes he make. What was that like to see a game that really was not met with open arms go back to the drawing board in some respects?
Well, with the whole process of Jason's game Thug Life, it was interesting, and I don't know if he's going to watch this or not, but it's so there's a part of me that knew him and got to know him and really liked him and wanted to see him succeed. Yeah, I want to see my pal succeed. But at the same time, I was thinking, like, man, it'd be really great for this movie if this game failed again. Like, dramatically speaking, it would be wonderful. But it's I think that he dared to try something new, and that is to give the miniatures audience, which has proven to be willing to spend a lot of money on great miniatures, great games, to give them a new kind of flavor of something. And did they want it? And they kind of said, we are not interested at this time.
Right.
And so good for him. He was smart enough to figure out, like, well, if people aren't willing to spend this much money on it, how can I make this game cheaper?
Sure.
As opposed to just trying again the same thing, which already he saw didn't work.
Right.
So how can I make this game cheaper, scale it back, make the pieces cheaper, make the cost per game cheaper, and then let's try it again. And then he succeeded.
Yeah. And and he talks about that idea of accessibility and having board games that aren't, a board game that isn't chess, checkers, cribbage, Monopoly, whatever, have an accessible price point and accessible theme, something that's interesting. And so I was glad for him in watching it to see that he was able to take some feedback, even though it seems to me, at least, he disagreed with the feedback, but implemented and then succeed with his game. I liked getting to see that as a viewer.
I don't know that he disagreed with the feedback. I think he was disappointed in the feedback.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because he wasn't like, oh, all of you people who are saying all these things, you're all wrong. It was like, I guess this is the way it is. I guess, these are the things that I'm going to have to do to make this a reality. And it's not my original vision, but let's do it.
Very different sort of game that came out, and also we'll see how interesting it was to be filming it. So Arranged, Nashra's game, super interesting. I think all of the stuff that's going on with the streaming shows that are out right now. How did you first hear about Arranged, and what was it like with the person that you're interviewing, like leaving and potentially not coming back at all? And then, of course, if you want to see how it works out, we watch the documentary.
Watch it. But in fact, stop what you're doing right now. Go watch it. It's on Amazon Prime as we speak right now. Like earlier this week, we got the news that it was going to be on Prime for free. But it's so the way I found out about her. Yeah. We were in Connecticut. And because that's where one of the producers, Wally Strauss's parents lived. We were in Connecticut, and I was doing work. I was online, and I came across this internet article, and it was about Nashra. It was about her game, and I want to say that like a week or two earlier, I was talking with Wally, and I said, Wally, what we really need is, because as you know, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware, the board game industry is primarily white males.
Yeah, the geek community is dealing with how white cis het we are at least presenting, and that's something I did really love about the documentary, is
Yeah.
that we got a lot of perspectives. But
Yeah.
sorry, so yes,
Yeah,
in that way.
yeah. So like, even more so designers, more so even than the audience that plays games. In fact, like exponentially more so, designers are primarily white males at right now. It's changing, but they still are right now. And so I said to Wally, I said, what we really need is a female POC who just made a game, who's good on camera and has an interesting story. But I don't think that
Cast a
person,
wide net.
yeah, I don't think that person exists, because and then I come across this article, and there she is, this person that basically checked every single box that I had said a week earlier.
And she's a delight on camera.
And she is fantastic on camera. In fact, within like about, I don't know, like a minute, it was clear that she was just this unstoppable force, But interviewing her when she was about to leave, I was just like, man, we better get everything we got to get, because we might not get another crack at this, because as you said, she left. That's the end of the story. I finally get her on the phone, and I get her to commit to being in the movie, and she said, I should tell you that I'm leaving in 2 days because my visa's expired. And I said, cool, I'll see you tomorrow. And so we went and interviewed her the next day, and I want to say a day or two later, she left to go back to Pakistan.
I mean, wow.
Yeah.
So you really didn't. I can see how you're just like, well, this is it. This is the last. But then it's not. Like, that's so cool. That's another one of those things about the documentary, which everyone should go watch. Getting to see how that story plays out, and the game looks so fun and just really eye-opening to be able to play, accessible to anybody.
And that's another thing. So like, in the photography of this whole thing, which our director of photography, excellent, because photographing interesting looking games on screen, that alone is difficult, and
yes,
I can't tell you how many games. In fact, I mean, there were some games, not like an abundance, but there were some games where they just, even in person, they didn't look exciting.
Yeah.
And so to come across that game arranged, where you just look at the pieces and they have so much character already.
Yeah.
That I was just like, well, this, like I said, checks every box.
Yeah. No, absolutely fun. Well, and so that's an interesting thing that I see about board games, and having spent so much of your time, life, career now making game masters. For me, I'm a wine snob. I try not to be a jerk about it, but like I appreciate lots of different types of wine, everything from a $3 Aldi's bottle, to more expensive wines.
So but I'm a wine snob, but I am a jerk about it. So
well, see, there we go. So, but I think for the vast majority of wine drinkers, it is, do I recognize something about the type of wine this is? Is there a sticker that tells me it's got a lot of points and that must be good? And is it a cool looking bottle? And I think, for me personally, if you can put, a 97 point sticker and then it won something from Napa, if it's a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Shiraz, which everybody's heard of, and it's a fun looking bottle, people are going to spend $20 on that bottle when they go over to somebody's house.
Yeah.
Board games are wine, right? Like,
in a way they are, because, like a lot of people's purchasing decisions, they don't know, they don't buy it because they know that the game is fun. They buy it primarily, like, whether they realize it or not, even on a subconscious level, they're buying it because the artwork looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, and in a way, it makes sense, because the majority of the time you're spending playing a game, you're not actually actively playing. You're just looking at at the board,
Yeah.
waiting for the other 2 or 3 people to play their turn. So, you want to be looking at something aesthetically interesting.
So you see something to me, the Ray Guns game is just this really aesthetically pleasing. That pop sci 70s feel is just so much fun. Or the calm and the tranquil look of trekking that was going on. And you even, it touches on this in the documentary, that Eschenspiel sticker, that they talk about how it's like a 300% gain in sales or something like that. If I'm misquoting it, that's fine. Our editor will fix it on my screen. But
it's I think that the general figure, which by the way, one of my favorite parts of the movies is one of the Spiel des Jahres chairman. He says, we can't talk about numbers, but you're going to sell 200,000.
We can't. I saw it too. It was like, we can't talk about numbers, but here is a very specific number.
And I like that interview. That was a 5-minute interview where we pulled Tom Felber off to the side and said, hey, will you talk to us for 5-10 minutes? And he did. And after I left after I left, I turned to the DP and I was like, did he just say that? And it's like, yeah. And fun fact, that interview with Tom Felber, chairman of the Spiel des Jahres at the time, Wally Schross, this was the last day of Gen Con. Wally Schross, the producer, was like, I'm gonna go get the car so that we can leave.
Right.
And go talk to Tom and then meet me out back. And so we literally did it on our way out of Gen Con.
A little off topic. So we're Gen Con fan. We've been to every Gen Con for the last, like 6 or 7 years or something like that. You did Gen Con 50.
I did.
Just absolutely bananas experience. Did you do anything with virtual Gen Con this year?
Yeah, I did a panel. It was actually the first time that all 4 of the designers that we featured were in the same room.
Cool.
Even though it's a virtual room.
A virtual room, sure.
But we did a kind of an around the horn style panel, with the 4 of them. It was a lot of fun. And I didn't know how it was gonna go, but I heard it went all right.
That's so cool. We did, to be completely vain about it, there were a number of shots, the wide shots from Gen Con that we sort of slowed things down, and it was like, are we in any of these? This is a day that we cosplayed. Can we find our cosplay?
No, I have to tell you,
it was so cool to see Gen Con represented that way and Essen represented. That was really neat.
You are not the only people that did that.
Well, that's good. That makes me feel good.
A lot of people have said, I slowed it down to see if I was there. And
good. I'm glad I'm not the only vain.
I have yet to have anybody tell me like, oh yeah, I found myself, and I'm still waiting for somebody to tell me that.
So once we're back able to be within 6 feet of each other and all that kind of stuff, do you have plans to air or do viewings of Gamemaster at Gen Con?
I hope so. I
hear that, Gen Con? I know you watch. I know you follow the channel.
Yeah, Gen Con. I mean, nothing would make me happier than to next year or the year after to go and do a screening at Gen Con. Not except for this pandemic to be over. That would make me happier. But the Gen Con screening at Gen Con is a good second place.
Something that really stood out to me with the documentary is how a couple of the folks that were making their first game said, it really is have a good idea and then it's dumb luck and you're never going to make a living designing games. And then the second half of the documentary, we see all of this stuff at Eschenspiel, and it's like, no, these people did make a living, made a very comfortable living making games. Do you think that it is have a good idea and dumb luck? Do you think that there is something else that sort of separates folks that make 1 or 2 or 3 games in their spare time from the people who are making games that change the way we think of games?
Well, there is some luck involved. There's always going to be some luck involved.
Yeah.
And I think the people who figure out a way to make a career out of it, they are either they're doing at least one thing really, really right. And whether that is, marketing, as far as like we're figuring out how to market ourselves. There is a couple in Ohio who runs, I think, Facade Games.
Okay.
Their games look like books. When you see a Facade game, you know that it's them. They've done like 2 or 3 Kickstarters. Their Kickstarters have been wildly successful. They are great at marketing themselves.
Sure.
I've not played the games. I don't know them, but them being self-publishers and them being on my radar means they're doing something right, having never played them. Or, these people like Eric Lang and Reiner Knizia, who are just, nothing short of geniuses, who are making something that people just want to come back to over and over and over again. And the marketing, they've got other people for that, but they're doing that part right, Sure. But even Reiner Knizia, who has made 600 games, probably a small percentage of them, less than 50% of them, have been what you would call a success.
Right. Well, and if I'm not mistaken, like he even says, if you're getting into this industry in order to make money and be successful, then don't.
So you're asking me, what can a game designer expect when they publish 1, 2, or 3 games, and how financially sound is that going to be? My answer is, if that's the question you want to ask, don't be a game designer.
What really, people who make a living off of it, I think they have 4, 5, 10 or more games. All of them separately generate a small amount of income. And then collectively, you have a bunch of hoses funneling into the same bucket. Then they can make a living off of it. One of my favorite games is something called Orongo, made by Reiner Knizia, right? Okay. It's kind of like Catan with an auction element in a way, right? They have Easter Island head meeples, right? Okay. It's a really great game. It's a little bit complicated just by the sight of it, but it basically sold nothing. I don't even know if it's in print anymore. I think I got it for $8 on sale because it was just not selling. Yeah. And I just bought it because off of the name Reiner Knizia. And I love the game, but nobody's heard of this game. Nobody's played it. And so, even him who has a great idea, has a great game, has a recognizable name in the game industry. Sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. So that's luck.
I'm curious as far as like, how do you're a filmmaker, but also clearly passionate about board games. You've got the ones that you like. What is it about you that makes you want to pull a game out? Is it because of boredom, board games? Is it the love of the game, about the people? Like, what is it? What's the catharsis behind the board games that you choose and the people you choose to play them with?
Well, I guess it depends on the other person sitting across from me at the table, because you want to have a good time, and a lot of the time that means the other person having a good time as well. And so, sometimes I'll try to push the limits of what that other person might be willing to play, as far as just like trying to grow their level of how meaty a game can be. Sometimes we're just in it for fun. If it's a big group, I'll say that Jimmy, the producer, one time he told me about a game night that he had at his apartment with, I want to say 6 or 7, maybe 8 people. And they ended up playing Battlestar Galactica. Something like a 2-hour game, 2.5-hour game. And I was like, I didn't even have to hear the rest of the story. I was like, oh, I'm sure that didn't go great. And because, you can't play a 3-hour game with that many people. It's about party games. So it's just kind of like, who else is in the room, and how many people are in the room, and what is going to be the most fun experience for everybody.
Did you have board games like in the house growing up?
I had some, the regular basic generic stuff like Monopoly and
was Monopoly a contention? Were there tables flipped and all of that kind of stuff? Which seems to be the story behind Monopoly for so many of us.
I don't know that I ever finished a whole game, honestly. Like there was a point where it's like, let's just stop playing. I had a Return of the Jedi set that had like a Sarlacc pit or something. It was like cardboard. It was a really
the old
one. Yeah. I had that, and I think I had all of the pieces and it assembled for like a day, and then just the next day stuff was missing. I don't know where it went. I was a kid.
Right. Sure. I wonder what the era that we're living in now, and not just with isolation, not just with COVID that's going on and all of that, but I want the more difficult problems that we're all facing as we're starting to see a broader diversity within the gaming world. I wonder how much sort of the idea of taking on the roles of others, seeing other people's perspective, and escapism plays into board games and their growth. I mean, is that something you saw during the filming of the movie, or even just your own game choice, or what your friends have you play?
I mean, there's a little bit of escapism. I think more than anything, people want to be part of a group, and the thing about board games, which is interesting, is just by design, you need another person to play with.
Yeah.
There's one game that I know of that is only for one person. I think it's called Solo, right? That one.
There we go. It makes sense.
It's where you're on a deserted island and you got to figure out how to get off or something. I haven't played it, but for the most part, you need at least one other person to play with. And so, by nature, people who play board games are usually pretty welcoming. Anybody's invited to sit down at the table and play. And so there's something really nice about that. And I think it's just people wanting to be part of a group.
This has been so much fun. I've been looking forward to this. It's unfortunate how long it took for the schedule to line up with everything.
That's okay.
But the good thing is that it did take a little longer, and which means that, people can hop on Prime and check out the video, check out the film. It's really so much fun to watch the stories of all of the love and effort and passion that all four of the main game makers pour into it, but also all of the other, secondary and tertiary game designers that you were able to speak with. It was really, nobody was making games for a reason other than the fact that they really loved the game that they were working on. And so I'm really excited at people being able to check that out.
Yeah, and also I'll say, I don't know if there's anybody in this audience that this applies to, but when making the movie, I knew that I had to make it accessible for people who were not into board games. So if you've got somebody else in your household that is not interested in any way, they don't have to be interested. They just have to like watching documentaries.
Yeah. It is a documentary through and through as far as a film is concerned. If you love board games, getting to see names you recognize. I mean, more than one time, as we were watching it, Dawn and I were just kind of like, oh, that guy, oh, that person, oh, that game.
Yeah, it's great to see a face behind some of the names that you've seen on the box multiple times.
But even outside of all of those, it was just cool to see people who cared about their thing. These ones happen to be people that cared about board games. This could be a documentary about salmon fisheries, or firefighters.
That's my next one, pilots. The salmon fishery.
Salmon fisheries. Yeah, there we go. Because they're so passionate about what it is that they do, and that's, to me, that makes for compelling viewing.
Absolutely. It's people telling their personal story, making something that with, by themselves with their own hands, sometimes in their garage, and just being passionate about it and trying to put it out into the world. And regardless of what you're interested in, I think a lot of people can relate to that process.
A huge thanks, Charles, for finding the time to talk to me, and a big thanks to all of you for watching this interview. And if you want to watch Gamemaster, you can find it across multiple streaming platforms, and at least of the release of this video, it's streaming for free on Amazon Prime.
A big thanks to all of our patrons, and especially to RV. If you want to support our channel, you can head over to our Patreon page and check out the perks of being a patron.
So until next time, I'm Ryan, and this is Roll for Initiative. Bye.